it. Well, I think everyone's joined. I think that's going to be coming aboard. So I'd like to welcome all of you. I'm glad you joined us tonight for this media training workshop as our SADS advocates. I'm Marcia Baker. I'm the program director for the SADS Foundation. And I want to introduce two fellow colleagues at SADS who will be presenting tonight. One is Alice Laura, our CEO, and the second is Anna Goodson, our communications coordinator. And then following the information about SADS and SADS Safe Schools from Alice and Anna, we'll hear from Meredith and Melissa, who are both volunteers with SADS, and about their media successes they had just recently. Then we're honored to have our guest presenter and media trainer tonight is Britta Dornan. Britta is a former actress in New York City until 2001, when she changed her career path to serve the public as a communications and marketing executive, using her creative skills to advance health education, civic engagement, and economic prosperity. She's now the Senior Director of Communications and Marketing at Every Life Foundation for Rare Diseases. As a rare disease patient herself, living and thriving with primary lymphedema in her legs, she empowers patients to be participants in the development of policies that impact their lives. Britta is an active health advocate for the lymphedema community, even writing her own blog to help others. We're pleased and honored to have Britta volunteer her expertise tonight. And we want to thank both Every Life Foundation and Medtronic for grant support to the SADS Foundation for this advocacy media training. And so we're first going to hear from Alice.
Let's see if we can.
She's going to share her screen here.
In theory, I'm going to.
There you go.
It works. Okay, it worked. Yay.
Perfect.
So thanks everybody for coming, at least for turning on your computer and watching the webinar. And we're really, whoopsies, happy to have you here, and also really excited that we're getting a group together. Of course, my dog's going to start barking right now. Sophia, no. Anyways, we're getting a group together to really help us with our media, because now that we have Anna as a relatively new staff person to really help put all this together, and Melissa, we're really excited to get back in the game of getting media out there. So first, our mission, which you all, I'm sure, know and also have learned different facets of it over the years, but save the lives and support the children and young adults, families who are genetically predisposed to sudden death because of heart rhythm abnormalities is our mission statement. So obviously that's like the #1 in any of our media that we want to let people know. And then the other thing, I'm not going to go over all this, but you got from Marcia some of those reading, and we will always, and some of you have participated in the AAP campaign that I think Melissa mentioned, that is going to be ongoing for the rest of the year for the new screening guidelines. But in any case, it's really important to have sort of some facts, because the media always wants that. And so we'll always give you a fact sheet and or a press release that has facts in there that you can use when someone asks you about, what is the problem and why do you care about this problem, right? And then the talking points, again, is something that we put on everything. And we tell people, if they're going to tell their story to the media around whatever campaign, that if you can sneak in any of these talking points, that is sort of the rough of that. Most of our kids are healthy and don't have anything that you can see from the outside, that they might have a SADS condition that we don't know about, right? Most of these problems that can cause sudden death in young people can be diagnosed and treated easily, and people can live normal, healthy, productive lives. So that's a really important thing to also say. And then the last one is that these are genetic, hereditary. And so if there is someone that is diagnosed with a SADS condition, that other family members need to be screened or tested by their physician. So those are sort of key points that we use for everything. And now Anna is going to take it over and talk to you about SAD Safe School campaign that we do every year.
So I'm Anna, I'm the communications coordinator for the SADS Foundation. It's really nice to see all of you here, especially because I've communicated with some of you over email before, but have never seen your faces. So it's really nice to put some faces to some names of people I've talked to. So right now we have our SAD Safe Schools campaign going on throughout the fall, and this is dedicated to raising awareness of SADS conditions in schools and keeping SADS kids safe. So there's kind of those two sides of it, is the kids that we know have SADS conditions, making sure that they're safe in schools, and then the kids that we can catch who we might not know about by learning the warning signs, which we'll talk about in just a second, and ultimately preventing sudden death in young people. We're also looking to make sure that school health professionals know about these warning signs and know how to perform CPR, and that AEDs are readily available in schools. So for this campaign, we are asking that if this kind of strikes a chord with you, that you reach out to your local media about this campaign. Since they're doing back to school stuff right now, this would fit right in with that. And you can use that info that Marcia sent you, the template email, and also the press release to bring awareness to your media stations. So this is one really important point that we're asking you to share if you do share SAD Safe Schools with your local media, and these are our recommendations. So this includes a cardiac emergency response plan, which makes sure that school personnel are prepared to act when a sudden cardiac arrest occurs. So this has to do with CPR and AEDs as well. Another recommendation is that all children have a risk assessment. And if they answer yes to any of the questions on the risk assessment, they should be evaluated by a physician. So this will ask them about possible warning signs in their family. We also recommend that all high school students are trained in CPR and AED proficiency by the time they graduate. And we want to spread awareness of SADS warning signs as well, which are on the next slide. So the warning signs are really important to bring to the media every time you contact them. So if you contact them for this campaign, or if you contact them for a future campaign, like Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month in October, bringing these warning signs to them is really important because we want to get this awareness out. This is one of the key components of our awareness. So this includes family history of unexpected, unexplained sudden death before age 40. And this is one where people might have to continue to ask more questions, because people might say no off the bat, but if you keep prompting them with things like drownings or single car accidents, they might recall that something like that has happened in their family. Fainting or seizure during exercise, excitement, or startle is another warning sign, and exercise-related chest pain. So again, this is something you can bring to all of the different campaigns that you might reach out to your media with, because this is such an important part of our awareness. So with that little bit of background about the SAD Safe School campaigns, I'd like to turn it over to Meredith Lovelace and Alexis Lovelace. So we just had a media campaign for screening guidelines from the Academy of American Pediatrics, and they had a really wonderful news story and video appear on their local news station, thanks to just their tenacity and continuing to reach out to their news stations and make sure that their news stations listen to them. So I'd love to turn it over to them to talk a little bit about how that process worked and their success with that.
Hi, can you hear us? I'm Meredith Lovelace, and this is my daughter, Alexis Lovelace.
Hi.
And well, when I got the email about the campaign for the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines, it was right around the time that Alexis was getting her ICD and pacemaker placed. So she had been diagnosed earlier this year, and we were navigating optimal treatment, and consider ourselves lucky to have, gotten her diagnosed and treated before any tragic outcomes. So we wanted to do our part in helping spread the word. And so I wrote to several of our local newspapers and to the news, and I used the material that was provided, like the fact sheet, but I personalized the story because I think that, if you're the news, I mean, the guidelines are going to be the most important part, but that's not the part that makes it personal. And I think that's what makes it a story. So I think that part of why our asking the news station to get involved was sharing Alexis's story and Alexis's willingness to get up there and talk to the news and share her perspective. So I opened the letter with a brief introduction to Alexis's story and how she had just had heart surgery at 14 years old to save her life, and that that other kids were at risk without knowing it, and could they partner with us in helping spread the word, and that led to the reporter coming out and starting the whole process for the story.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you for getting that story out there. We really appreciate your help in getting the SADS conditions out there and spreading awareness. And we were glad to hear about how well her surgery went as well. So congratulations on that as well. I'd also like to introduce Melissa Russum. So she had a little bit of a different path to getting her story out there. So we actually had a news organization contact SADS and ask if we had anybody who could speak about their experience having a SADS condition. And Melissa has been an amazing and fantastic volunteer and worked with us for a super long time. So we reached out to her and she was able to connect with them and give her story for that. So I'd like to turn it over to Melissa to talk a little bit about her experience sharing her story.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, mine was definitely a different experience. I remember Alice called me and I was in the car on my way to my mom's house, and someone was looking to have an interview that within probably an hour. And so I just had like a t-shirt and shorts on. I was going to my mom's house, which is about 20 minutes away. I didn't have time to go home. So I'm going and like rifling through my mom's closet, just like a blouse to put on because it was a TV interview, and we made it work just fine. I set up, my Zoom chat in like a corner of the house, because at my house, I have my office already. In my parents' house, so just sort of in a corner of the family room, where there was just nondescript background. So I say that just sort of as a point that, things don't have to be perfect. Sometimes things are sort of spur of the moment and it comes together just fine. And I didn't look perfect. I wasn't in a perfect location and I didn't have time to study my talking points, but you know what? It was genuine. And I think it came across just fine. And so a couple things that I did in that interview, and I also have proactively pitched. I'll mention that in a second, but I, just like Meredith had said about personalizing, it's the reporters are looking for a face to their story, or to the guidelines. That's the news tip, but they're looking for a face to put to it. They're looking for a family to assign to that. They're looking for sort of a front-facing story that people can identify with over like guidelines and numbers. And so the way I approach it is, one, I always mention kind of my family history, which includes my mother, myself, and my daughters. So we have 3 generations plus cousins and, going out in every direction, but we're at least 3 generations of us that are affected. And I do that, knowing that my 5 and 7-year-old, that, that's something that a lot of people will identify with. That's something that can be kind of a, just a different kind of story for that. We're talking about school readiness and, things like that in children, and medication versus for myself. I know that I'm able to talk about being a patient and being a mom. And I also, we actually were diagnosed after my sister passed away. And so I'm able to talk about her death. And back to what Anna had said about when she was going through, the different talking points, the warning signs that are part of those things that we always try to get across. I'm able to say that, able to kind of bring those to life by saying things like, the alarm clock. My sister passed out from an alarm clock in college, but was never diagnosed. But now that's sort of the lack of awareness side. And then I show the flip side, which is the awareness piece. My daughters in school now are pulled out of their class and go to the nurse's station when there's going to be a fire alarm so that they don't have that sudden startle. So I feel like I always try to pepper in those anecdotes wherever I can, because sometimes thinking of those awareness indicators, those talking points that we want to get across, if you think about how you can sort of attach those to your story and weave them in, I think that's where they're more likely to catch a reporter's attention and seem more organic within the story. But I also wanted to mention that I've had great success with hyper local news. My family and I have held a fundraiser for about 15 years for SADS. And it's something that we do in a local park. And we have, I think we kind of lead with that it's volunteer led, that over the 15 years, we've raised, more than $150,000, that we have, 200 people in attendance. We kind of look at like, what are those hot button things? And I make sure that I put those in a press release. And we've had great success with, again, those local neighborhood newspapers that you might not even think of, but at the same time, those are people that'll know your family, that'll be able to be aware and protect your family better. And so I just wanted to mention that sometimes those are overlooked, or even the TV news. What we have here is called Spectrum, and that repeats every 10 minutes. So, I mean, if you get a story on there, yeah, it's not your local CBS station, your local NBC station, but if someone tunes in, they're seeing that no matter when they tune in, because it is always on a cycle. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention those things too, in terms of kind of like the proactive outreach. Oh, and also when I pitch, I also am quick to at the pitch rather than in the follow-up, I'll attach a photo or two of my kids, just because I think they're adorable. They have cute little glasses, and they're going to be the feature of the story. And I think that might get more attention than just words on a page.
May I add one more thing that you do, Melissa? Just that is also really great for advocacy, is that quite often they get the mayor to show up at the event, which is another really nice little VIP who shows up that can grab some attention for media and whatnot. So I'll just add that for you if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We have local, we've had congressman, mayor, assemblywoman. And when they show up, it's also great in the press release, we'll say about, that we expect them to be there and what time they'll be addressing the crowd. So then, the reporters know what, just kind of almost like giving them sort of a shot list, but that, hey, at 3:00, we'll be drawing our raffles. And at 3:30, Congressman Tonko is going to address the crowd and that kind of thing.
Well, thank you, Melissa and Meredith and Alexis, for sharing your stories. We appreciate it. Great to hear them. I always learn something new from everyone. Okay, Britta, I'll turn it over to you, and you can begin your presentation and sharing your screen.
Wow, wonderful. What wonderful examples. Presentation completed. As Marcia indicated when she introduced me, I am a rare disease patient with primary lymphedema in my legs. So I am just a rare disease patient with a knack for communications, who is lucky enough to be able to work in the space that matters to me, the rare disease space. So I work for the Every Life Foundation to do this. So, but this is not about me tonight. This is about you, and God bless each and every one of you, because this is really AP level advocacy, to step up, to learn how to reach out to your local media. I have not been asked often to do this. I used to do this more with small business people when I worked in that realm, because they don't have PR agencies to do the work for them. And so it worked well for them to get publicity for their businesses. But This is fascinating to me that you want to do this. I can't wait. I want to hear what happens when you reach out. We want to get more Meredith, Alexis, and Melissa success stories. So let me see if I can successfully share my screen. Sound. All righty. So as Melissa and Meredith and Alexis pointed out, you don't have to be a celebrity to make the news. So let's learn how we can share your story to your local media. Again, I work for the Every Life Foundation. Who's familiar with the Every Life Foundation? Has anybody heard of us before? Say hello or raise your hand.
Yes, definitely.
Well, of course you, Marcia. So we've been around since 2009, and we're around because 93 to 95% of the known 7,000 rare diseases do not have an FDA approved therapy. And that's not okay. The average time for diagnosis for a rare disease is over 6 years. That's not okay. Many rare disease patients struggle with gaining access to therapies if there even is one available, and that's not okay. And so that's why we were founded, to empower advocates like you to get engaged in policy so that we can save lives. So what we're doing tonight is finding another way for you to save lives, to change policy through using local media. So actually not 1 hour now, we've got 33 minutes left. So within this time, you'll have even more of a feel of what is local media, how to reach out, how to share your story, and what to do once you've secured local media like Meredith, Alexis, and Melissa have. So I'll have you know, I don't give lectures, I have conversations. So turn off your mute buttons if you can, and talk to me and be a part of this, so that we can all learn together. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what are we talking about when we say local media? Can somebody give me an example of local media or hyper local media like Melissa referred to? Is there an issue with the audio, or we have a shy crowd?
Actually, I guess we have a shy crowd. You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and let us know.
Can we just throw things out?
Yeah.
We have
Go ahead.
local television, we have newspapers, we have what they refer to kind of that maybe closed access kind of cable-ish type of stuff that they were. So it's a lot of different things that probably can include little grocery, the things that you get in the grocery store, those free type of things. So it's a lot of different things, print, visual, video.
Keep going, Carl. You're on a roll. You're on a roll.
Who wants to throw in here?
No, that's great.
And
You
also
hit on-
radio.
Yeah,
Radio.
Go,
Oh, I
go.
forgot
Yes,
radio.
Melissa. Yes. Does anyone listen to radio anymore? A lot of people do. Sirius XM in your car as well.
Social media.
Social media. Yes. Where a lot of people get their news in social media. So of all these examples, is there any one that you think might be, or which would you gauge as being more valuable than another? Let's do a little experiment to get this answer. Did everyone get emailed the story that Melissa and Alexis were in?
The Meredith and Alexis one. Yes, the
That
Loveless.
Meredith and Alexis were in?
Yes, that was right.
KLKY.
There you go.
Read the story real quick if you have it up, or I'll scan through it. I'm going to go to the next page. I'm going to go to the next page. Going to go to the next page. Show of hands if you've read through most of it at this point. Right? So what were your impressions? What stood out with that article? You remember anything from it? Does anything stand out about it? Any factoids or points or? That's okay if nothing did.
I just want to say that when I was looking at it again, I could see how some people that don't have, would feel intimidated because Dr. Ackerman was involved and local doctors were involved. But I want to just point out that was the SADS Foundation played a role in helping identify those contact points. So that wasn't all on us. And so I think that having an organization like SADS that is behind the scenes, putting the pieces together is really important. And that I hope people wouldn't be intimidated by that, because you have the support, you have speaking points that are laid out. So I think as the advocate, your part is just sharing your story and putting a face to what the work that's going on behind the scenes.
So Meredith, let's take a look at how you did that. Let's now look at what you read, but watch it on the screen.
Dance isn't just something Alexis Lovelace does. It's what she lives for.
Just where I always want to be. I wouldn't choose anything over it.
But now she has to carry in her dance bag more
Got the defibrillator.
than just point shoes.
She was diagnosed with a condition called long QT syndrome, which is a cardiac channelopathy, and that condition puts her at risk for sudden cardiac death.
I could still go into cardiac arrest at any given moment.
It's just one of several conditions that falls under SADS, sudden arrhythmic death syndrome. Meredith Lovelace and her daughter discovered she had it after she fainted in February, which is a sign.
So it leaves you feeling like, how am I going to protect my kid?
The Lovelaces are not alone. Dr. Michael Ackerman, the SADS Foundation president, said it kills around 5,000 young people every year. But with the right screening questions, around 50% of cases are preventable.
It's long overdue. It will do a great job once implemented to catch that half that give warning signs before their tragedy.
That's why the American Academy of Pediatrics released these new guidelines with just 4 questions for pediatricians to ask. Questions like, have you ever fainted or passed out without warning, like in Alexis's case?
We've been advocating this for 20 years. The SADS Foundation as an organization have put out these warning signs as about 15 years ago.
But for guidelines to actually be implemented is a whole other process.
So ideally, it would just go into effect with a click of the button and everybody would see it pop up in their electronic medical record they use as, these are questions we should ask this patient of this age. In practice, it's a lot more difficult for things to filter down.
Dr. Bishop says it could take months to become common practice. And Meredith hopes the changes trickle down fast to save lives.
I feel so grateful that we were able to find out what we were up against and be able to get the right treatments and know that she has a normal future.
Alexis now lives with a pacemaker and implantable cardiac defibrillator,
Send a shock through my heart.
as well as a lot of gratitude.
Dance, I kind of took it for granted. It was just what I did. It was happy. And being told that I could almost be taken away from it, that was just hard.
So while her dance bag may be a bit lighter now, Alexis will carry this lesson with her every time she takes the stage. Annabelle Thorpe, WLKY News.
Okay, so let me ask you again, which medium do we think is most valuable?
Visual.
Visual, video. Yeah, I mean, the first time I watched that, I got I was all choked up to see the face of who it's impacting, to see the defibrillator, to see the defibrillator, to see the point choose, to see this young woman impacted and her mother. It puts a face to the issue that we're talking about. There's emotion, there's drama. Look, I worship the written word. That's what I do every day, and day in, day out, I write. But that really is the gold standard that we're all here to try to achieve in our local markets. So what's also great about video is that you do retain more. I bet that after seeing that video, you would be able to recount more about the issue and the impact than by reading that PDF. And guess what? Alexis, who is video more appealing to?
Your generation. Oh yeah, definitely the.
Yeah, and what does this heart issue is really, we're talking about young adults here, right? So it's a key demographic to keep in mind of who we're targeting. And also, typically, TV audiences are larger. I looked up that WLKY audience, and it reaches about 2 million people.
To hear that.
And it can be shared easily. And when that video is shared on social media, it gets more exposure due to the algorithms on social media algorithms. So so why do we want video like this on local TV as opposed to, say, on the national media? Why are we so focused on local? There's less competition. You're not competing with the whole other country, right? You've got your part of the world. And that reporter that you dealt with, Meredith and Alexis and Melissa, they need content. They're looking for content. And that's why, as Meredith said, none of us should be intimidated to reach out, because they need us too. Funny enough, Americans trust their local media more than national media outlets. Also, although everyone does not watch local news or read the local newspaper or pick up the local grocery bulletin, Carl, who does? Who does read all of this local media? The school officials that you're trying to implement and get these practices in place, you could bet for darn sure they read. You can bet they all saw your piece, that they were one of those 2 million. And it's free. It didn't cost us anything to run a 30-second ad to that on that network in that area. I looked it up. Would be $10,000 per 30 seconds. So it's a 2.5-minute ad. It would have cost you $50,000. It's charged by thousands of viewers. So with 2 million viewers. Bravo, you saved SADS $50,000. Maybe you should put that as an in-kind contribution in your annual report, Marcia. So, all right, let's get to the meat of it. How do we find the local media in your area? How do you do it, right? We're gonna have Anna look up everything and reach out to everybody. Well, we could all be a part of this process. So it helps to be a fan. It helps if you tune into your local news and read your local newspaper. That's a good way to get to know and identify and find contact information. But if you're like, geez, I do not watch or read my local newspaper. I have no idea. I'm totally, just on social media and on, I don't do that at all. Google is your friend. So let's do a quick experiment. I know it's 8:10 here. If you Google, let's say Salt Lake, since that's where SADS is headquartered. If you Google Salt Lake City local media, look what pops up. Boom, this wonderful link called Media Contacts that somebody put together. And if you scroll down, you see all these weekly and local papers. This is gold. Radio, And finally, television. It gives you the links. So if you go to KUTV, okay, what do you do now? What are you looking for? I suggest looking for what stories related to the issue that we're talking about have they covered. So I would do a little search here. Always look for the health section, right? We're talking about health issues. Oh, check your health. Let's see what's going on there. Look at this. We've got new concussion protocol to help kids return to full academics. We've got check your health, back to school stress. Bingo. We've got an issue. They're covering stories like ours. So if I Googled, I looked at this story and tried to find that specific reporter's contact information, and I came up snake eyes, but that's okay. You can just go to the main contact page and use their contact information. So let's keep this in mind. Let's go back to our little presentation here. So now we've got a simple example of a Google search to find your local media, right? Everybody following, everyone can do this, right? But now it's like, okay, what do you say? What are you supposed to say? Because they made it sound so easy. Meredith and Melissa, made it sound so simple. So how do I pitch my story? Meredith said something really, the most impactful thing I think that you'll hear all night, and Melissa trumpeted it as well. She said, what makes it personal makes it a story. So Meredith, could you do me a favor and just read that first one of how you pitch your story, the first principle?
Mention that you're a local resident.
Exactly. Did you do that when you spoke to?
I did, and I mentioned which local high school that she was attending and that she was part of their dance team.
Excellent. So if, let's say, I was able to research a reporter ahead of time, that I was reaching out to a specific reporter, they have profiles online you can read, and they say, if you find something that you have in common with that person, like maybe they have a kid who goes to the same school as Alexis, you can mention that, and that makes it even more difficult for them not to respond to you if you're making such a personal connection. Number 3, how about Anna, could you read number 3 for us? Because you hit on this with your presentation.
Absolutely. Include facts about the disease or issue, but localize the facts to your community as much as possible.
That's Anna's dream. That's all she wants you to do. Use the fact sheet.
Absolutely.
There's a way, even I know there's 4,000 a year that, the deaths nationally. If there's a way to break that down by state, that might even catch their attention, or even more. Make it relevant. Number 4, why your story is important now. Can anyone give me examples of what might make the sad story relevant now? What is the media covering right now that would make it relevant to them, timely?
Well, if the school sports are starting up.
Exactly. Back to school, baby. Like, you can't turn on the television without seeing something about back to school. So if you reach out to your local media tonight or tomorrow, that'd be really good timing. Other than this week, are there other opportunities, other bites of the apple that you can think of throughout the year that might make outreach to media timely?
I definitely think that SADS will give you a bunch of pieces like we did with the AAP guidelines. But after our September, November is SCA Awareness Month. So that's a national declared by Congress month for big picture. SCA can still be in schools, but can also be anywhere. The Call Push Shot campaign we'll be doing to get everybody to say, what do you do if you see somebody? Call 911, push on their chest, give them a shock when they bring the AED.
Right.
So that's
Awareness Month. Absolutely beautiful.
Totally. And then November is Family Health History Month. So we're all, probably Britta's been involved with that too, all asking everybody to talk to their families at the family holidays in November, December, and let everybody know about your condition and, you know, have they been checked and that sort of thing. So that's November. So we always kind of have stuff coming up that we'll let you know about for sure.
So you've got a partner in this to how to make it relevant. You just bring your story. You then, of course, have to make the ask, you know, that you were asking them to cover this story and help bring light to this important issue. Be a hero. Keeping your pitch brief so they don't give up once they open your email and see how long it is. Sharing a photo or video. If in the future, Meredith and Alexis, if you reach out to another outlet, in fact, you know, that might be a good excuse to say, hey, we were just featured on you know what, a little tip here is that print media does follow television. Or I'm sorry, I just said that completely backwards. Television follows print. When you turn on the business programs in the morning, if you've already read the newspaper, you're like, well, didn't I just read this? So if you you know, if you were to be in a print media first, that could be leveraged to then try to get the golden television coverage. Always include your name and contact information. Okay, so what I'd love to do is to look at the template that has been sent to each of you to make this super simple. Does this look familiar to everyone? Did everyone see this? Let me try to zoom in a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Raise your hands if you haven't had a chance to read this sample template yet that's been emailed to you. Okay, great. I'm seeing some hands up. So due to time, I'm gonna read through it real quick. I'm a resident of blank, and I'm of Arlington, and I'm writing you with a story that might be of interest for your back to school coverage. Families like mine often worry about the safety of our children at school because of our inherited heart conditions that could lead to sudden death if not properly treated. Have you heard a story about a healthy child or young adult who died suddenly with no obvious explanation? Did you know this kind of unexplained death will affect 4,000 families this year alone? So look at this. We've personalized it with giving your location. You've given it relevance with the timing of back to school. You've caught their attention, certainly, and you've included facts. It continues on. Many of these children have a heart condition that the family was not aware of, a heart rhythm abnormality. These conditions that can lead to a sudden cardiac death are entirely treatable. That's why it's so important for schools to be aware of these conditions. School health professionals can help recognize warning signs like fainting and help make sure kids with these conditions have a safe, healthy return to school through learning CPR and keeping AED in school. I like to share my firsthand experience with you. This is the point in the story. It's highlighted in yellow. This is where each of you write your 2 to 3 sentences at tops, 1 to 2, that summarize what's your Alexis story. That, you know, my daughter who goes to such and such school couldn't dance. She was restricted from the thing that she loves most, and until she had such and such treatment. And you know, we don't want to see other families go through this. Then I have attached details from SADS about how schools can become safe for children with these conditions, and it goes on to provide the SADS contact information. What I would like each of you to do right now is to pick up a pen and jot down what is the sentence or 2 that you can insert here. I'd like to share my firsthand experience with you and how awareness of schools impacts a family like mine. What would you say here? Let's take 90 seconds to 2 minutes to think and write down a sentence. And then I would love for a brave soul or two to share theirs with us. Okay, I see a lot of hard thinking going on. I can feel it. Any brave souls would like to share their firsthand experience? Carl, you're breaking a sweat there. You gotta have something good. You're on mute. Tell it, unmute yourself and give us some jewels of.
All right. I'm unmuted. So this is from a physician standpoint. So I'm a physician who has treated young adults who had not been diagnosed with a treatable condition until it was too late, yet had clues in their family history and early warning symptoms that would have prevented their untimely deaths.
Wow. That's wonderful. Great job. Christy, you look like you are creating a masterpiece there.
It is not a masterpiece. It is far from a masterpiece. I'm trying to word it. Yeah, but I think, my story would be something like my daughter and I have arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. I was diagnosed last year when I went into a ventricular tachycardia and had to be shocked 3 times to get me out of it. Because the disease is 50% autosomal dominant, many of my family members have it, including my daughter, Cassidy. And I would go on from, I try to make it a little shorter, but that would be my personal story.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Would anyone else like to share?
I can share mine.
Great,
I
Sandy.
just wrote down, my father had been passing out his whole life. We never knew why. Doctors could never figure it out. In 2009, he passed out again and was finally diagnosed with Brugada syndrome. Was not, unfortunately, not treated and properly, and died from cardiac arrest 3 months later. So then everyone was tested. Unfortunately, I was diagnosed, and I have a 17-year-old son who is suspected of having it and will get tested when he's 18.
Wow, that's incredible. That is excellent job, Sandy. I think what is incredible about each of the 3 who share their story is how succinctly you were able to write and share it. That was amazing. You take that wonderful writing that you just did, you plop it where this yellow part is here, you insert your contact information, and you send it off.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is I understand the template. I think that's great. Is it your recommendation that you target like one station at a time, or that you go to all 3 local stations?
Nah.
Or, I mean, can you send multiple at a time and you're waiting for the first one to come back? I mean, how do you
Bingo.
manage that?
That's what I would say.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I would do. Because, you know, there's likely one that's going to bite more than another. And for whatever reason, you know, maybe that station, that reporter just did a back to school story. Like, you know, they don't, you know, bad timing, or you just never know. So I'd say go for it. It's not like you're offering exclusive rights to your story. Right. So, okay. So you hopefully
if I
you
can
will
just
get.
throw in, I sent it to several stations when I sent the initial, and I did not hear anything. And I resent it 2 weeks later, and that's when they picked it up. So I think I sent it to a different address on the site. So I just think it happened to hit the right person at the right time.
Excellent.
I think that's a great comment, because I was
Perfect.
going to break in for that as well, just to say, you know, for some of ours in the past that have been successful, it was multiple times, and it was phone calling, and it was bugging them to say, did you read it? And, you know, until they got that yes or no answer. So, you know, I mean,
Perfect. I will cover a slide on what to do if they don't respond in just a second, but you guys pretty much just covered that. But let's say, okay, somebody responded, it hit, you go back and forth, they ask you questions, you're interviewed on Zoom or in person or on the phone, whatever combination it is, the story, feel free to ask them, when do they expect the story to land? They usually would send you a link to it or tell you when it's going to air. Subsequently, there's usually a video posted, like we saw of Meredith and Alexis. So share it on your social media, ask others to share. If it pertains to Every Life policy, we would certainly share it on our channels, post it on the SADS website, include it in SADS e-newsletters, put it in your Christmas letters, put it in the annual report. And then be sure to follow up and stay connected with the reporter, right? So Meredith, Melissa, did you, you know, say thank you or have any exchange with the reporter since then?
I did. After seeing the finished piece, I always write back and say thank you, you know, kind of compliment them, great piece. And then I certainly will, you know, at a minimum, follow them on Twitter, and then try to like something of theirs every now and then, you know, just so they remember who I am.
Perfect. And keep in mind, you know, a lot of some reporters like to do a kind of where are they now, or a follow-up from a story. So I don't know, when do you graduate high school, Alexis?
I'm freshman, so 2025.
Freshman. I mean, so some other milestone, whether it's, you know, you won a dancing championship, or you're, you know, going into high school now, or, you know, send the reporter a note and say, hey, remember Alexis, you know, she's still going strong, and this is what she's doing now. And, you know, she's now advocating going to the Every Life Foundation's Rare Disease Week in DC to advocate, you know, you want to cover her again. So just because you get a media hit at one place doesn't mean it's the last time that they could cover you. There could be other opportunities and angles. So if you don't get covered, as you guys talked about, don't be nervous about following up 2 weeks later. Maybe try another email address. As Meredith said, follow them on social media, comment and share to start building a relationship, or try submitting a letter to the editor or a commentary, which some of your SADS advocates have also done recently. So a letter to the editor is usually, but not always, in response to something that was written in the paper, but sometimes it's just in response to something going on in the community. It's usually very short The limits on words are usually very short as 150 words. And op-ed is usually that means opposite the editorial page, and it's usually a longer form and written by more notable individuals in the community. But for both, the rules apply to be authentic, be relevant, include facts, personalize it. Everything that we just talked about is the same idea. But be sure to comply with the submission guidelines, hence my Thomas Jefferson quote. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do. This is an example of one of your fellow SADS advocates, Andy Golden, who placed a commentary in my nearby Maryland, and he tells his story. And this is versus a letter to the editor, which is shorter and is in response to something else specific going on in the community. So since you all are AP, has anyone else submitted a letter to the editor or a commentary piece before? Again, they are looking for these. They want you to submit. So it's another great way to get coverage. Any questions about the letter to the editor or the commentary piece? So it is 8:32. I ran through as much as I could. I would love to stay in touch. If you want to link in with me on LinkedIn and stay in touch. And also, I really encourage you to save the date for the Every Life Foundation's big advocacy event. We hope to goodness that it'll be in person next year in Washington, D.C. But there may be a hybrid component to it. A lot of our advocacy events are virtual, meaning meeting with your members of Congress or your state officials and talking to them about, how these kinds of guidelines should be implemented, with such and such law or policy. This is part of what we do. We set up the meetings and we help train you and prepare you to talk to policymakers. So if you go to everylifefoundation.org and sign up for our emails, you will just know everything that's going on in my world.
It was so much fun virtual this year. I know it's different when everybody's together, but it was really fun doing it.
Yeah, as virtuals go, it was pretty high speed. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But thank you. So thank you all. Let me know if you have any questions or follow up with me at a later date if you have questions.
Thank you, Britta. And are there any other questions right now before we close for Britta or any of our presenters? Melissa, Meredith?
Anybody?
Okay. Well, I think, just next steps, I think we hope you're ready with attending today, that you're ready to help get the SADS Safe Schools program out to your local media. And you've heard we've got a few more months of different campaigns coming up, and we'll definitely keep you in the loop. I want to ask if you'll copy SADS and specifically Anna, ANNA at sads.org on your communications or questions that you may have with your local media. So on behalf of the SADS Foundation, I thank Melissa and Meredith and Alexis, Britta and Alice and Anna for presenting today. And also we thank the Every Life Foundation and Medtronic for their grants support. So, and thank you for participating today.
That's great. And if anyone needs particular help with a specific story, like maybe Carl is a little bit different because you did a great job with pitching yours, but please get in touch with Anna and we definitely would be happy to help you tweak something or figure out what angle would be best. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you all for participating.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, look at it starting. Nope, it's not. I have to move my computer out of the sun. Sorry.
Yes, you look very ghostly. That's what I told.
I know it's a good thing to be ghost, right? But